are live, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for Blockchain Talk. Super exciting subject to explore. Thank you, first of all, VRA team. We have our production team up top, and we've got all of our panel guests here and some audience members. We're here to stream this live so that you can hopefully ask some questions in Twitch. So thank you, everyone who is in Twitch as well. I am going to open up the chat and take a look and look for any questions you might have throughout the show or talk. So let me look at my notes really quick because I want to make sure that I cover everything as well. This is an educational panel talk, so we're going to be sharing a lot of information. We're going to try and make it easy to understand for anyone who maybe doesn't know about blockchain technology. The first half of the talk, so segment 1 and 2, we're going to have guests come up and they're going to talk about the actual technology. What is the blockchain? Where is the blockchain? Who is the blockchain? Who's running this thing? So we're going to get really technical during the first half of the talk. And then towards the second half of the talk, so segment 3 and 4, we're going to open up to some developers and artists and discover how we are, how others are using the technology. So first I want to just kind of make a point with this picture behind me. You can see it's a cable. It's laying in the ocean. Does anyone know what that is? Some do, some don't. I was really shocked to find out that this is actually our internet, our World Wide Web. There are actual cables laying on the ocean floor around the world that connect all the countries. That's how we communicate with each other on the internet. The reason I'm bringing this up is because blockchain uses this to communicate. It's an internet-based technology. A blockchain can be enclosed by itself. It doesn't have to be between like the world. It can actually be in a company, and you can use blockchain technology within your company. But yeah, I was surprised to find out about our internet. It's submerged in the ocean, and sharks are biting at the wire sometimes. And it shows that maybe we don't know everything there is to know about a thing. So let's get learning and let's get talking. Segment 1, we are going to invite Annalise up to the stage. Hopefully Annalise is ready to come up, but Annalise is very versed on blockchain technology. She talks about it all the time and uses it quite a lot. So let's welcome Annalise up to the stage with us, and you can have a seat right over here.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah. Welcome. How are you?
Thanks for welcoming me. Hi, I'm well. I'm Annalise. As you mentioned, others in the space call me Bitcoin Queen, depending on who's asking. That's just my pseudonym for safety purposes. Most people have them for that reason. But I belong to BitBasel, which is a NFT technology kind of incubator at this point, because we don't only help artists, but we help the general community, guide them in the crypto space, specifically in the NFT space, and do anything from teaching them NFTs to doing general blockchain and education. So I am excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's really awesome what y'all are doing. Oh, by the way, Annalise is from Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, Miami, Florida, born and raised.
But she's currently in Hawaii. So there might be somewhat of a lag. We have guests from all over the world today, so that's amazing. Let's dive into these subjects on this first segment. We're going to talk about sort of the history of blockchain. Who brought it up? Whose idea is this? Where did it come from? And what's it being used for? How did it even get started?
So blockchain kind of originated actually back as far as the 90s, early 90s, 80s actually. Cryptography has been something that's been around since the 70s, and that's where we kind of started coming up with the idea of, all right, how do we store things infinitely in perpetuity? Cryptography was originally for pictures and photographs to store them for like long periods of time, and it kind of turned into making everything storage and encrypted for long periods of time. So back in the 80s, there was, I think his name was David, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, David, I'm going to butcher his last name. Yeah, and back in 1982, he was the first person who proposed a blockchain protocol. And it didn't really go anywhere. The tech was very new. As we know, it takes a long time for things to develop. So it wasn't until the later 90s that two more people came along and started working on consortiums, which are a different type of blockchain that we're going to get into later, that aren't necessarily centralized, and they have more of a entity kind of standpoint. So a consortium would be used by, let's say, JP Morgan or an institution of some sort. But since then, fast forward to the 2000s. In 2008, that's kind of where blockchain was recognized, really, with Bitcoin. A lot of people think that Bitcoin and blockchain are kind of synonymous. You can interchange them, but you can't. They're two different things, two very different things. Bitcoin is built on top of a blockchain. So blockchain is, at its core, just the tech, and blockchains essentially are made to store informations again for long periods of time, and you're not supposed to change it or destroy the information. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't destroy the blockchain, which is, I feel like that's something that a lot of people, not necessarily a myth, but don't get. Blockchains can be destroyed if they're not decentralized. Not all blockchains are decentralized.
He's
Sabby,
back.
I'm gonna go back to you before I just keep talking forever.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so that's really interesting, and we're starting off on the right foot, you guys. 'Cause blockchain itself is its own thing. It's a technology, and people are doing different things with it, as Annalise mentioned. Let's get into actually Bitcoin a little bit. Let's talk about, as you're mentioning, the different things that can be built on top of a blockchain. And there's many blockchains. There's not just one, ultimate blockchain. So yeah, definitely continue on with that. It's very interesting.
Let me just outline the different types of blockchains so that everyone kind of is on the same page with that. So there is a centralized blockchains, which mean that the blockchain is located in one place. So, for example, if let's say JP Morgan, which probably is not going to let you run your own node, and I'll explain what that is in a second, decides to make a blockchain, they would probably have a centralized blockchain, versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a decentralized blockchain, and a lot of the times I get questions, what if the internet goes offline? Well, because Bitcoin is decentralized, you would need to literally shut off every single device that has ever run a node ever, and then probably also shut off satellites, because companies like BlockFi are sending up, or signals and having things send up to space and satellites that can basically store nodes over time in perpetuity. And if that's the case, then I feel like we have bigger problems at that rate if every single computer is offline and the satellites. So the likelihood of Bitcoin, yeah, the likelihood of Bitcoin just disappearing and not being able to be a thing one day is very, very unlikely, unless, again, quite literally everything goes offline. So those are probably the two main types of blockchains that you'll come across. There's also consortiums, which are blockchains that have a select group of people that run it and are allowed to make changes to it. So it would be like, a group of banks, a group of stores, things of that nature. And then there's kind of semi-decentralized blockchains, where, again, there's like delegators. So the way that works is, think about it as a web with one central point, and then it kind of spans off into like sub-central points, and it spans off into specific points, which would be the semi-delegators. And those are probably the top 3 blockchains that you'll come across. Most likely you'll come across the first 2 I mentioned, which is centralized and decentralized. So now breaking off into Bitcoin, and it's important. So Bitcoin was originally founded in 2008. As we know, the first Genesis block was mined, or the first 10 Bitcoin was sent over to Hal Finney in 2009. Some people celebrate Bitcoin's birthday in January. Others celebrate it in, I think it's October, if I'm not mistaken, is a month. But it's because the first Bitcoin generated versus the first transaction made were in fact months apart. So that's kind of like where the Bitcoin birthday day kind of comes from. It's just kind of like a happy birthday to the Bitcoin Genesis block, and also the Bitcoin first transaction made. A lot of people think that Satoshi Nakamoto may have been a group of people. A lot of people think that it could have been Hal Finney and David Kellman, which I don't know if you guys have heard of him recently, but he's the one who was in the lawsuit with his daughter, because both of them have passed, fortunately, but his daughter was in a lawsuit with Craig Wright, which is the guy who's currently claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto, which I actually don't doubt that Craig could have, in fact, either A, known who it was, or B, been close to him, because he's a very smart guy. He is a computer scientist. He's an engineer, and he was early on the Bitcoin train, but I don't think it's him for various reasons. Whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, they have the first Bitcoin on hand, and that hasn't moved. But
do they have the most Bitcoin? And actually, I've also heard that Satoshi Nakamoto is actually a group of people. So there's really no telling like who this entity is.
Right. So here's my theory. So technically, there's like, and I think the other day there was a wallet that had like $250 million. It was like 700 and some thousand odd amount of Bitcoin that had moved for the first time in like 9 years. So my theory on this is most likely this project was done by a group of people. The group of people obviously remained anonymous. And I actually think that it could have, in fact, been a conglomerate between Hal Finney, David, and it could have been Craig altogether. And here's why. I kind of came up with this with my friends. Both of them are dead. Two of the 3 are dead. Until after both of them passed, the third guy didn't come out and say anything about it, and he's claiming that he has his backup. Now, if you know anything about like hash power and stuff like that, Craig has computers running, trying to, in my opinion, open these original wallets, which he doesn't have access to, but the other 2 guys could have had access to. So in my opinion, what's happening here is he's trying to claim that he is so-and-so because the other 2 are gone and out of the picture now, and they can't.
There's obviously a lot of drama that can happen. Actually, something I thought about was, is this a huge pyramid scheme where somebody made this and made it a big deal, and now we're all buying into it? But those are kind of some theories and things we could talk about probably another time. But let's move on to the concepts of that were presented in the Bitcoin paper. Things like a miner, and we're talking about miners like you're mining for something. Are they like the cashiers, in a chain? And what about these gas fees? What are they for? Who do they go to? Why are they expensive? And why does their value fluctuate? Things like that. What about, the concepts of the blockchain or any blockchain, which could be different from chain to chain? Is that right?
It sure can. So I guess let's get into the back end of blockchain and kind of start up with keys, private keys, public keys, and go into mining. So everyone has a set of keys essentially, and this is your address. Your public address is your front-facing address, which people can send Bitcoin to you, but that's not necessarily going to give them access to your wallet. You have something called a private key, which at that point in time you shouldn't share with anyone. And if anyone has access to that private key, because this is something that that's completely anonymous, and it just goes based off cryptographic like numbers. Um, they can basically get into your account, take your stuff, and leave. So it's very important to never share your private keys. So the way Bitcoin works is that it does run off miners and nodes. So Bitcoin works off proof of work, or also POW. Proof of work basically means that you're trading, mathematical computations, which is how mining kind of works. It's just a bunch of like numbers that a computer solves, mathematical equations, and then it gets the electricity, basically turns it into Bitcoin. That's the process, and that would be considered proof of work. So the miners basically keep the Bitcoin running online. Every time you make a transaction, that's kind of where miners come into the picture. Anytime you move your Bitcoin, send your Bitcoin somewhere, because again, the blockchain records everything. So anytime you do anything on the blockchain, even something as simple as signing a transaction, not necessarily moving money, it is recorded to the blockchain. Now, there are ways that you can not have things, I guess, publicly visible on the blockchain. You can actually do a private call, not necessarily send it to all the nodes, and it would record on something like a side chain. But if it is something that's going on the main chain, it will always be recorded. So gas fees. Gas fees are charged because miners need to be incentivized to continue running the Bitcoin miners / nodes. So basically, every time you pay a gas fee, you're just paying it to the miner based off how much strain is on the network. So if there's a lot of hash power going into a block, basically at that point in time, the gas fees might be higher if there's a lot of transaction going through, because which is kind of what's happening with Ethereum, but at a much higher level. Ethereum, they have something similar to what Bitcoin has in terms of mining, but it's a little more competitive. So the gas fees kind of have been blown out of proportion, as we've seen in the past year or so.
So I just wanted to mention that competition, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. When a competition is introduced into a chain, that's when things get a little crazy. So just keep that in mind. We'll touch on that a little bit. But before we pass the concept time, I wanted to ask, everyone always wants to know what exactly a Bitcoin or a coin, of any value is. So when I first learned about the blockchain and how transactions work and what miners were doing, how they're processing the transactions for a specific chain, I thought, wow, these people must be like glued to their computer, just like super busy every day because there's so many transactions that are happening. But in reality, I learned that it's actually a software, the hashing software, that processes the transactions and processes all of this. So basically, if you have a computer, say you're a miner, you get a computer, you have everything set up. You have dev mind knowledge, so you know how to connect all this stuff together. But you download the algorithm for blockchain off of, I think it's available on GitHub, and everybody's having their own blockchain downloads available on GitHub. And then there's another software, I guess, to do the hashing. And is that, they just set it up and the computer just does all the work, and they don't have to be hitting the approve button on their computer to approve transactions. Is that anywhere near the truth?
There's various different softwares and different types of miners that you can use. If you're going to use your computer, if you're going to use a CPU or a row of GPUs, at that point in time, you download whatever software you're interested in mining, in terms of if you're just going to mine Ethereum, or Divi and some of these other blockchains, they have like their own thing set up where you can just download it because they just coded it that way. There's also websites that you can go to that will make it a little easy if you don't know how to set up yourself and you just you're mining just from your laptop. There's things like NiceHash that you can go on. There's also miners that are like ASIC miners. You just plug them in and they go. Those are not the best because they're very specific. They're meant to only mine, one thing that you can't really set them up. So that might be not the best way to go. And in my opinion, if you're going to get into mining, GPUs are kind of like the way to go. That's why GPUs right now, if you look them up, they're very expensive and really hard to get. But that's basically how
Yeah.
it works. All you do is get the code. If you have get a screen, put it in. If you have a bunch of GPUs, plug them up and let those babies run.
Nice. Well, let's touch a little bit on. We have a few minutes left to touch on the rise of other coins, and I think we're kind of diving into that. But there are so many other coins out there, but there's also so many blockchains, and they're used for different things. But when it comes to a coin, and a miner processes the transaction. So say you have like 1,000 miners who are competing together on a chain to process the same transactions at the same time, and then also get the correct hash number, and then they all arrive at the same results at the same exact time. There's actually an approval. A lot of those, if they're new miners, they won't even have a chance. But I read that the miners who are more trustworthy in that chain get the approval and they get the reward, which is basically the ability to create an NFT that is worth so much, say Bitcoin, that is approved and put on the blockchain. Because you can literally give yourself a bajillion Bitcoins, but they're not worth a thing if they're not actually minted on the blockchain. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, that is possible, but the way that like blockchains work is that they all have to sync up and match the same information, and the one that has the most accurate information and the one that has the most other nodes that run and say the same thing is the one that goes through, and that is the official chain. So if somebody decides to create some code to arbitrage the chain and make it look like they gave themselves, like thousands of Bitcoin, and that's one chain, and everyone else says no, then that's not what's going to be officially published. So it is really a community, very heavily community involved, like kind of situation when it comes to blockchain.
And how does the community say yes or no? Does everybody meet in VRChat somewhere at a round table and say, yes, we're going to accept this block, and no, we're not going to accept that block?
No, well, I mean that would only be a thing like that were kind of like what happened back when Vitalik was trying to reverse something on the blockchain, and everyone's like, no, that's not how blockchain works. Don't revert it. You can meet up and discuss something if it is a major event. Otherwise, no. Everything because you run a node and everything is captured on that node, which you can just run a computer. You can run a blockchain node. I'm sorry, Bitcoin node. It'll just, as long as the information is synced and correct with other people at that point in time, that's essentially how you cast your vote if your information matches. That's it.
So there's a
You don't
sort
have to
of
do anything.
community. There's a sort of community, I think. It's what it sounds like that you
Yeah.
should be a part of, sort of like a voting committee almost, right? That communicates on social media or email or something.
So there used to not anymore. There used to be a Bitcoin Foundation way back when, and it's kind of divvied off, and I think that's kind of how Bitcoin has like no publicity. Like Bitcoin's just like its own little monster. It kind of just goes, which is kind of like the other beauty of it. But there used to be a Bitcoin Foundation. There's not really one anymore. There's one for devs, but everything kind of. I mean, Bitcoiners always talk to other Bitcoiners, and if you're active on the Bitcoin core team and communicating to the devs, that's probably like the best way to like be heard. But when it comes to like consensus and like reaching agreements, there's you can vote on stuff like that, just like with any other blockchain. If there's any major things that need to be changed, and that's why there's so many forks of Bitcoin. Like there's Bitcoin Gold, there's Bitcoin Cash, there's Bitcoin Black, even there's a lot of Bitcoins, and every single time it's because they didn't reach an agreement. So you can either have a soft fork or a hard fork, and you basically have your own blockchain at that point in time.
I'm thinking every single day, I'm assuming there's like a ton of transactions or blocks that get accepted to the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain. Like, how does that approval work? Is that written within the algorithm that everyone uses on that chain? Is that like an automatic
Yeah,
process?
so that's where smart contracts come in. And basically, smart contracts, they're self-deployed. So after they're written, as long as whatever standards are met. So for instance, it's like if this and that. So if I'm trying to send you, let's say, $20, I'd have to have enough money to cover the gas fees, and I have to have enough money to cover the $20 that I'm going to send you. So if the smart contracts, if I send a transaction, it creates a log. And if my transaction matches up with everything that the smart contract is written out to do, so if I have enough money to cover the transaction fee, if I have enough money to send, and then it approves. If it doesn't, then it'll kick back. And if again, going into Ethereum, because Ethereum's a little different, with the gas fees, you can run out of gas. So your transaction, even though you paid for it, if let's say gas fees are on the rise, you might not have enough gas, and even though you paid $10 to send a transaction, it could run out and basically cancel. So it's a little tricky. For the most part, if you're just sending money from a wallet or from pretty much any exchange, you should be okay. Usually transactions don't cancel out if it's on Bitcoin. I haven't had anything crazy happen to me on Ethereum, except for NFTs. I've definitely paid quite a bit on NFTs on Ethereum in terms of gas fees, and some of them have ran out before. So it does happen, but yeah, everything is based off smart contract. So as long as you meet every requirement, then it'll automatically deploy, and everything is on a computer and on a miner. So it'll just run through someone's miner, and it'll just go. Everything just goes. It's kind of just automatic if you set it up properly.
Okay, so one more question. You're so knowledgeable. When it comes to the value of coins, so for example, Bitcoin obviously is the biggest and first one. It's become so valuable. Is that because people are buying this virtual coin with fiat money, even though it's sort of, I've heard a lot of ideals about, say, Bitcoin, and trying to get away from the conglomerate of like the bank system. But it seems to be funded almost by the fiat money. And is that putting virtual coins on shaky ground?
So this is the way I see it, because I mean, some people they like to invest into Bitcoin. The way I like to see it is that you're exchanging your currency. So I'm exchanging my US dollar for Bitcoin, and that's now the currency that I want to function in. It's like when you go to another country, and you don't use US dollar in India, you need rupees. Same concept, but it's not something that I'm changing back into US dollars. I'm staying within that ecosystem. I mean, you need Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price has essentially been set by the people, which is kind of the cool part about it. It's not set by banks. It's not set by it kind of inflation helps it. Inflation definitely helps Bitcoin's cause for sure, as we've seen in the past year, with COVID and everything. But it's really boils down to the amount of Bitcoin that's being mined, the amount of Bitcoin that is actually available for purchase, the amount of Bitcoin that's being held on companies, and then the amount of Bitcoin companies / people, and then the amount of places that you can kind of use and like move your Bitcoin and stuff like that. As long as you have kind of a steady marketplace and you can hit all those points, at that point in time, you can give something value. And because there's been more Bitcoin tried, like there's been a higher demand for Bitcoin versus how much Bitcoin is actually available. So that had also attributed to the price flying up so high. When it hit like $60,000, it was flying up so fast. Between that and the actual inflation that was happening with COVID and the printing of the money, that kind of pretty much helps Bitcoin's case. But this is something that's purely set by the people, and it's usability, which is
I love
the
the fact
beautiful part,
that
in my opinion.
Exactly. I love the fact that you mentioned it is set by the people, you guys. So what we think is valuable and we think it's worth a certain value, that's in our hands. And that kind of lends an avenue into the fact that anything can be an NFT, not just a coin, which is very sought after. It's been, I think, the issue with uh, on social media. It's been sort of criticized a lot, and we'll get into that later as well. The environmental impact that it's having, but anything can be an NFT. Your art, which obviously we're going to be talking about it later as well. Um, any kind of media, anything that can be digitized can be an NFT. So whether it's currency or it's an experience or an art, video, anything like that, um, it's able to go on a blockchain. It just depends on what blockchain you're trying to put it on, because obviously you can't put art on a currency only thing, or something. You can't put your art on Chase's blockchain, right? So you need to know where to go for those things. But well, thank you so very much, Annalise. I appreciate all of your information and for volunteering to come up here and share education.
Thanks so much for having me. If you guys have any questions, again, you guys can head over to the blocktalks.org. But thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and invite Jose and Hasmus, and we're going to get Voltage up here shortly. Welcome, you guys. We are here in segment 2, and we're going to talk about the technical process of minting things. In this case, we are artists, so we're going to talk about art. Okay, first we'll start with Neverender, aka Jose. Do you want to introduce yourself really quick? And then we're going to jump into some technical talk about what happens when you mint your artwork.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me, Sabby, and for the production team as well. Thanks for putting this together. My name is Jose. I go by Neverender, and for the past, I want to say year, I've been looking at blockchain and NFTs because I had a lot of friends in the VR space that were getting into it last year. And then at the beginning of this year, I started getting involved with the, I guess you could call it the clean NFT movement. And just kind of as an educator and advocate for proof of stake blockchains and NFTs.
Thank you for your contribution. And you know what? I just want to mention really quick that Jose, you do such a wonderful job at keeping track of things and like keeping record of things. So I know you did something.
Thanks. I can't help it sometimes.
I love doing that too. I'm like such a nerd when it comes to data sheets. Yeah, I mean it's just so helpful because now we have a resource. There we go. We have a resource to go look back on, and it's basically documenting history as well, and what's going on. So that's always super helpful. So yeah, thank you. And if you want to dive in, like what exactly happens? Not so much how, because there's lots of platforms we can go to and mint our artwork, but what exactly is happening there? What is that website, that interface we see, and how is that connected to the blockchain or a blockchain?
Yeah, so hopefully I don't butcher this description, Annalise. If you're out there, feel free to like give me a signal if I'm explaining it wrong. So essentially, when you go to any of these platforms, assuming you want to use a platform to mint something, you're interacting with a smart contract, and so you're essentially, uploading your artwork, whatever format that platform accepts, and then you're also adding some metadata, so the description and any other features that might be part of that smart contract. So at the basic level, it's like title, description, and file type, the time it was minted, things like that. Now the artwork itself actually gets sent to, well, I guess this is not always the case, but like you want to make sure that this is the case because it would defeat the purpose otherwise. The work is sent usually to decentralized storage, so usually it's IPFS, and you can just think about decentralized storage. So it's because it's separated among a bunch of different people hosting nodes or kind of keeping this record. you're less likely to have your files disappear rather than, if you were to host it somewhere else. That's just like a centralized server. Folks also use like Arweave as well. Sometimes it's another backup, and that's another or Filecoin. Like these are all different types of blockchains that are specifically meant for like decentralizing and storing data. And so, when people say, "Oh, I can just like save the JPEG," that's right, you can, but like you're not going to have the historical record that you purchased that from someone else because you don't have the token, and that's the thing that gets generated. That's the actual NFT that gets generated when you're on the website, for one of these platforms.
And then most of the artwork or digital media that you upload to generate a token, that's like you said, it's usually held like on their server, right? It's not like something you have on your computer that you're linking, or something you have on your website that you're like linking to get a token. Does that sound right?
Yeah, well, so it's like on a decentralized network. So it would be kind of problematic if, let's say, you use a certain platform and they were hosting all of the files, and that's the only way, because then if that's one point of you're just putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping that they stick around forever. But if you're using IPFS or something like that, you're less likely to have that happen because there's just because it's decentralized, right? You have that strength of a lot of different nodes. Ideally, your work is going to live in perpetuity. And there are some websites, I wish I would have listed these when I was writing down my notes, but there are websites that you can use to check your NFTs to make sure that the platform that you minted it on, if you use the platform, is hosting the assets in the right way with IPFS or something else.
Interesting. So it seems very platform specific. Is that where that's headed?
Yeah, well, so there are standards that have popped up. So, for example, artists' royalties, on NFTs, that wasn't really a thing until I think it was last year, 2020, and there was a group of artists and researchers that were really pushing for this data art, and you can look them up on Medium. They've got a lot of great articles, and they were really the ones that kind of pushed for royalties on some of the earlier platforms. And then once royalties became a thing, then artists started to expect that. And so for a lot of these things in this space, it's about standards, right? It's about how long it's going to take for these things to change, because everything is platform specific. You have to also think about, when you're minting, does the platform that I'm using, is it, let's say, compatible with OpenSea, which is like the largest aggregator of NFTs? Is it compatible with a specific wallet? Is it does the token standard? So, for example, a lot of token standards across blockchains look at the Ethereum token standards as a starting point, because it's the most popular and widely used, and so they usually try to make sure they're cross-compatible. But that being said, there are so many other blockchains that have token standards with that allow your NFTs to do way different things. I saw a presentation yesterday for the Kusama blockchain where your NFT could evolve. So basically, it's future-proof. You could change it. You could make an NFT, equip an NFT, all kinds of cool stuff you could do that's not possible on Ethereum, right? So,
speaking of other platforms, I mean, there are so many, aren't there? And they all have their own specifics, as to what you can do with your NFT, or, whatever you're minting, and what can be put up on their platform, and just all these different, beautiful, unique, different things. And just depending on what chain they're based on, they're either eco-friendly or they're not eco-friendly. I think did you have a slide that you wanted to show during this segment? Was that the one?
Yeah, we could show it here and or in the other one. It's essentially just another spreadsheet that I've made where I'm tracking all of the platforms that you can mint on. Now, keep in mind, you could make your own smart contract and mint it, yourself, and not use a platform. But usually, people tend to use platforms.
Yeah, it's easier. It's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can basically, look at these different platforms, look at this list, and then you'll get an idea of which ones are using proof of stake blockchains, which is a lot more energy efficient. I mean, everything has its like ups and downs, but energy
And then
efficiency.
here, I think you have like which blockchain it's actually built on. Is that what you have listed?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Neverender. That's
Thank
a
you.
lot of research and information. I know it's difficult. It's fun to play with it, but then when you have to like actually take it apart and figure out how it's built, that's something else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got Voltage here. Voltage made it to the stage, but we're gonna move on with Hasmus. Welcome, Hasmus, to the stage, and give us a little introduction, and then we'll dive into user process and responsibility and what it takes to have an NFT and maintain it.
Well, I'm Hey Hasmus. I'm a kind of a artist who's kind of stumbled into blockchain and technology and all that kind of jazz about this time last year, maybe a couple of months, maybe like March last year, like straight bang in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah, and it's well, when I first kind of came onto blockchain technology, I recently kind of discovered it like way back in like 2008 2009 when my friend was mining Bitcoin, and I thought it was just completely beyond me and crazy, and I wasn't expecting it to like kick off like it did earlier this year, and went absolutely crazy, and everyone talking about NFTs and things. And it's because it's quite a confusing bit of technology, and it's really
definitely
something which is really exciting. But for people who are like me, who are more kind of arty and not really coders, or kind of, I was interested in technology and blockchains and things, but it was very opaque. So I was keen to explore and see how to get involved. And one of the first platforms that I discovered and was lucky enough to be chosen to be a part of was Known Origin, which is a kind of a really nice UK-based platform for being able to upload your artwork, which started off like just like under 25 megabytes, I think it was originally.
Yeah,
And
I think each platform is quite different. When did you learn about? Let's talk about like wallet. What is a wallet, and how is that related to being able to interact with these other platforms?
Your wallet is more like it's a transaction enabler. So it's more like it's more like a kind of key to access the various decentralized apps and platforms which are hosted on blockchains, and it's your kind of key to get into those places.
Plugin? It's like a plugin, to your browser.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can get I was going to go into that. There's two plugins for the Chrome browser which I'd recommend if you want to just start off with blockchain and kind of swapping coins or NFTs, particularly with NFTs, and that would be MetaMask. And make sure you get it from their main website, and because there's potential copycats around there which are nefarious in nature. And that's for kind of swapping NFTs and kind of coins on the Ethereum network. And there's another one called Temple, which is for swapping NFTs and kind of using the utilities of the Tezos network, which is XTC, whereas Ethereum is ETH as the kind of the coin token marker thing. There's also a very new blockchain called Near, NEAR, which Mintbase is now. Mintbase, the kind of NFT marketplace platform, has just kind of adopted and kind of completely taken in Near as their kind of way of doing things.
How do they use the wallet? So rather than recommendations and like, because I think we're going to get into platforms with Voltage, but how does the wallet relate to minting your artwork? Like, what is that used for? Why do you need that? Why do you need to fill that with coin depending on whichever chain you're dealing with.
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. It is what I said kind of before. It's like it's a transaction enabler. So it's just like a way of you kind of store the coin and the tokens and then in your wallet, and then to do various things on the decentralized apps, you then spend some of those coins to either sign in or upload or swap or any kind of task that you do on an Ethereum blockchain. That will cost you some money, or cost you some, not money, cost you gas or kind of transaction fees.
So you need the wallet to be able to
keep all that in one place. Yeah. And the wallet is also where
if you sell your art, you can put your money there, right?
Yeah, and your kind of your earnings or your coins from selling art all kind of end up going into your NFT and into your wallet. And it's just a place where you keep all your kind of digital assets.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
It's also the way you sign into platforms.
Yeah. So you can also use it to. It's a kind of it's like a little pass card, like a little identifier, which you can tell decentralized apps that, hey, I'm this person and I want to. And it's kind of like it's like an ID card of sorts.
It's literally your wallet. It has your ID in there, your money, your key.
Yeah.
You need it. But not for all platforms, right? But mostly, you're going to need a place to, if you sell something, for people to deposit coin or, whatever.
Yeah, okay. and some people have two wallets. They have their kind of main transaction one and one where they just keep all their, kind of a more private one where they keep all their assets and things.
Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you, Hasmus, for that bit of information and, ironing out, terms and what things are. Voltage, welcome. And I know you were having some audio issues before, but I'm so glad you made it.
Thank you. Privacy settings, you couldn't get past them, but because I didn't know that's what it was. Anyway, hi.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and then just dive into telling us about curated platforms versus non-curated platforms and comparing what that would involve.
Yeah, cool. Okay, my name is Voltage now. I started off as Banana Lobotomy sometimes last year. I met a few people through VR and then found out about NFTs, which I thought were quite interesting. Jumped down the rabbit hole and got quite absorbed in all that and got involved in a few different platforms and a few virtual worlds that are kind of connected to the NFT art scene as well. So another way people have of artistic expression is also to work in the worlds and to display their worlds. That's why their artwork in these virtual worlds. And obviously I started into my own stuff. After a while, it took a while. It takes a while to sort of see to find your own angle and what you actually want to do. But once you actually start, there's a whole load of choice. You've got the choice between, like you say, curated and non-curated platforms. Currently, there's kind of three styles. The third one being Invite, which is the platform called Foundation. That's the newest one, the newest styling, where you're actually invited in by the artists on the platform. Once they've sold something, they're allowed to invite other artists, people they know, people they respect, or people they'd like to actually see on the platform. So it's like a kind of peer curated thing. But otherwise, you got platforms you can just go into, like OpenSea is probably the largest and the oldest one. OpenSea is really cool because it connects to other platforms like Rarible, which anyone can use. But you can also mint stuff on Rarible and then sell it on OpenSea. So not everyone is that kind of flexible. So that's a really good one. Well, they're all good. You know what I mean? That's an easy one to get into.
Both of those platforms are open and non-curated. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Mint-based, I think, is not curated. Might be one or two other ones, but the main ones people tend to talk about tend to be the curated ones. And the phrase I came up with is the grass is always greener on the other platform. And a lot of people think, right, I need to get on super rare because as soon as I get on Superware, everything's wonderful, and I'm going to sell loads of it. And then if that doesn't work, it's like, oh no, actually I need Foundation. No, I need Known Origin. And you can spend a lot of time trying to get on each platform, and that's not necessarily the best way forward. Up until recently, a lot of people wanted to get on curated platforms because you could have auctions there for your work. And places like OpenSea, you couldn't do auctions. But now I believe you can actually do that on OpenSea. So that's kind of less of an issue. And a lot of the issues that people have really is the fact that platforms are so incredibly busy. So there's a lot of our artists there. But at the same time, that's one of the benefits of it, because once you're on the platform, say I'll use Known Origin as another example. If you become an artist on that one, which is curated, you have to be accepted by them. You have to do a little video. They review the video, look at your work, and then either accept you or reject you. And if they reject you, you try again, try until you get on, or you might just get an invitation out of the blue from one of the people who works there. But once you're on there, you get access on their Discord to areas of this Discord that you don't get unless you're an artist on their site. So there is a lot to be said for actually being on a platform which is very supportive of artists, and most of them pretty much are. That's the business they're in, is actually they're interested in art and artists. But yes, there is a benefit to being on these platforms. But don't worry if you can't get on a curated platform. It doesn't essentially matter. You can have fantastic success to staying on OpenSea because it's been going for a long time and it's got a huge client base. But the platforms now, and I'll just mention like cryptocurrencies, there are quite a few different ones. Ethereum is the one people talk about the most because all the big sales have been done with that. It was the first real cryptocurrency, as far as I know, set up to hold artworks as well as value, really. So Bitcoin is just money. Ethereum is money and artworks and tickets and whatever you want to use it for. So that was the first one. But now we have Tezos, which is the one Hitek Nunc uses. Nia, I know Hasmus has already mentioned, which is connected to Mintbase. Mintbase will do Ethereum and Nia. And let me see, if you go to Cargo, which is where I started, then on Cargo you can use Ethereum, you can use Matic, which is on the Polygon chain, and you can also use XDAI. So you've got three currencies on that one. And the reason some platforms go for different currencies is to try and reduce gas fees, because gas fees can be quite, they can get in the way. If you're minting 10 things and you have to spend quite a bit of money for each one.
The gas fees per coin are based on what's going on that block, on that blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So it
exactly.
is nice to have like a platform that you can mint, whether it's curated or non-curated, depending on what you want, that they're letting you, they're connecting with the different blockchains, to give you an option. And also, I think a lot of platforms are becoming environmentally conscious, and so they're connecting with these environmentally safer
Exactly.
virtual
There is
currencies.
that. Yes, I didn't mention that, but that is another reason for it as well, the whole environmental thing. And I know each chain is well aware of that and has been for, well, it goes back much further than people talking about it in the media. Prior to that, the chains were aware and they were working on it. So it's not something people have just been kind of fragrantly, blatantly ignoring. So people are aware of that. But some chains, by nature of the way they work, actually use less electricity. So that is part of the reason people have been moving over to those chains. And one tip actually I will add while I'm thinking about it is, if you are using the Ethereum chain, everyone knows the value of things like Ethereum and Bitcoin go up and down regularly. But once you start minting artwork, you can see, if you've got a wallet, say for example, and you put just a little bit of money in the wallet, if you just look at it every day, you'll see that value go up and down regularly. And you will notice that your gas fees are less at the weekend, because a lot of this is based on stock exchange. So even though you're dealing with art, it is worth considering stock exchanges, and I believe that one of the most important ones to watch is like the one in Shanghai, where when that shuts down for the weekend, your gas fees drop down considerably because people aren't trading coins the way they were. And also your value of your Ethereum will change through the week. So I find over the weekend, your Ethereum isn't worth much, but it will creep up starting on Monday until in the UK about midday lunchtime, it will be worth more than it is earlier in the week. And then it will start dropping towards the weekend. So if you're buying stuff, it's good to do it at the beginning of the week. And if you're taking money out, it's good to do it later in the week.
It's definitely
it could
an
it
up
could
and
make
down
quite a bit of
game.
difference. Yeah, it is very much an up and down grade.
Well,
Yeah.
Not
Just to
financially.
recap, we've
Exactly.
got
Yes.
curated platforms and we've got non-curated platforms. So that makes a huge difference. Where a non-curated platform, anyone can go and mint, whatever that platform is accepting. You don't need an approval. You don't have to turn in like an interview video and things like that. Whereas a curated platform, it is probably going to take you a little longer, if ever, to get on that platform. But it's also curated where they double check who you are. So nobody can just go and submit random stuff. And I mean, once you get accepted, I don't know, you can put whatever you want up there. But that's definitely something we need to talk about is security on the platforms and how that experience has been for each artist, going on. And I think that's going to really smoothly transition into our next segment, which is going to be segment 3, where we invite some other artists up here to talk about that experience that they've been having with the different platforms. And not just that, but also what's going on social media. Did your social network increase? Did people start unfollowing you? Are you what's going on in that area? So let's go ahead and think let's see, I think Voltage and Hasmus are staying with us. And Jose, we'll have you come back on segment 4. So we'll see you a little bit after this next segment. But thank you so much, Jose and Voltage and Hasmus. And we'll go ahead and welcome up. Let's see, we are going to look for Rendered Flesh, Lover Worldwide, and Linman. So let's welcome them to the stage. A lot of information, you guys. We're trying to plow through all of this in a way that's, easy to understand. This is definitely a new tag, and we've all had lots of questions, and you guys are definitely doing an amazing job in explaining everything. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Lover Worldwide. I hope I'm saying that right, because I hear your name pronounced different ways.
Yeah, you got it.
All right.
Worldwide.
Perfect. And then we have Linman, we have Rendered Flesh joining us. So welcome, everyone.
Hi.
This is a pretty open discussion here. But let's start off with talking about the platforms. Have you had any experience with the curated versus non-curated, and what has that experience been for you? Dealing with that. And anybody can answer. Just feel free.
I find that the curated stuff seems to be more kind of refined, kind of fine art material, or kind of more thoughtful stuff.
All right.
People have really kind of dedicated more time to their artwork, whereas the open platforms are more a kind of experimental or kind of memes or just more.
Oh yeah, lots of memes.
Yeah, and more kind of iconography kind of stuff, more just like stuff be getting churned out, or people just kind of doing whatever the heck they want.
Mm-hmm. Experimental, okay. Well, we can just go down Lover.
Well, the curated platforms, I feel, it's a good way to express your particular style, and then the non-curated platforms is a good way to be experimental, And additionally, just like it was said earlier, it's really about finding your groove in, what connects with you. The communities is the community connecting to some of your ideals and what you're aligned with, possibly, most people, let's say if you're into clean NFTs, you might be more into Hicket Nook because it's a really, clean NFT platform, for example. So there's just so many reasons to choose a platform or to apply for a platform. And primarily, I have found that it's all about community. So it's more so where I'm engaging and who I'm engaging with. And then you just begin to evolve in that way. For me, it's been a slow practice. I've applied to a few different platforms, and I've gone on, I'm on a few, and most of them are uncurated, So it really depends. And the artwork sells. Sometimes it sells, sometimes it doesn't.
All right.
It's all a matter of practicing.
So it really does. Yeah, personal choice, and I think the platforms really need to make some basic information very obvious to those who are shopping for a platform. Like what chain they're on. Just all the different things, like all the different um, coins they use. I personally have not. Actually, I'm not on the blockchain. I haven't minted, so this is all research based for me. And I'm just thinking of things that I would want to know. If I go to a platform. If I decide to jump on doing that. But yeah, very good. It sounds like it's all personal choice, and there's lots to choose from. Voltage, you were originally talking about the curated versus non-curated. What has been your experience with those type of platforms?
Yeah, well, so far it took a while to get onto a curated platform, which was Known Origin. And like I said, I replied there twice with 2 videos. Got rejected both times. But at least they did tell me, which I actually value quite highly, because some platforms you don't hear back from them. I know they're very busy, but as like a sensitive artist, which we all are, you just want to know. Yeah, you kind of need to know. So I even put that on Twitter. Of course, I was very appreciative that they actually told me I was rejected. But then a few weeks later, I actually got an offer anyway out of the blue from them. So that's how I ended up getting onto Known Origin. But prior to that, I'd been on Cargo, where I started when Cargo started up, and also OpenSea. And there is a lot to be said for the non-created platforms. Like you say, they can be a bit kind of wilder. In a lot of drama will go on sometimes. I think in the last year, Rarible had a few issues where a few people were copying other people's artwork and selling it, which is something that can actually happen. But again, that's where the community steps in. Like Lover Worldwide says, the community is fantastic and dynamic and kind of omnipotent and really busy. And when people start taking liberties, the community will spot that pretty quickly and come down on them like a ton of bricks from what I've seen. So the community's kind of got your back, I think, is the message here. It's people just don't tolerate that sort of thing, and it's nice to know you got the support, because it is. I mean, when you're doing your art and you're putting it out there, it's quite personal. You're kind of exposing some part of yourself, and it's nice to have people around who are really supportive. I mean, Hasmith I've actually met through doing all this, and a whole load of other people as well, and Rendered Flesh as well. We regularly chat.
That actually reminds me of a point that I think is something we could talk about after we finish hearing from Linman and Rendered Flesh. But what exactly did you expect of the blockchain? Versus what people are using it for? How do we wish the blockchain was, or not blockchain, but these minting platforms? We wish that only we could mint our art. So we have to be careful with that, right? Yeah. Lyndon,
it's
let's
interesting.
go ahead
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I want to make sure I hear from everybody before
you can go ahead if you want.
No, I was just going to say it'd be nice in the future to have larger files on the blockchain. As an artist, particularly VR artist, your work tends to be quite chunky as far as memory goes, and it'd be nice to not have it stored on another server somewhere, to actually have the entire artwork, instead of an unlockable content. It'd be nice to have it all online. But that, hopefully, if I can nail the whole ecological issue, then that would just come with time as hardware increases. I was just going to add that. So, Limon, you can say something.
Hello everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Linman, or Lorna Inman. I'm a VR artist, so that's kind of thank you. That's kind of how I came to know about the blockchain. And I started on Cargo as well, so I don't have much to say really about the curated versus uncurated, but I do think from an artist standpoint, there becomes this kind of thing of having to feel like you're ready or have like a collection together to apply for these creative platforms. So I've never actually really tried to. It's always kind of been in the back of my mind. But as I said, so I started with Cargo, which I'm not sure if you guys as well had this, but so when Cargo started, they kind of gave out a bunch of credits to some artists so that we could upload without paying the fees. So that was my kind of introduction to selling NFTs.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, nice. Okay, and then I assume you're going to continue looking around and see what other options, just like regular art, right? You don't want to just set your art in this one gallery. You want to have it in all the different areas to get eyes on it, if you can, because there is a restriction with NFTs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I now have.
Can't... Oh yeah, you go for it, Lemon.
Oh, I was only going to say that I now have like a collection that's being released on another new platform. It's called aniseed.com. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but so they're promoting that.
No.
Yeah, so they're like a carbon neutral platform, which was kind of another reason in the past that I've hesitated with applying for some other things, but I know that you guys are going to get into that afterwards. So this is another new platform that I was commissioned to do some pieces for their launch as well. So that these were kind of my introductions to actually uploading NFT art.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, good. It's nice to actually, I think this is our first time, a lot of folks' first time meeting you in VR. So we've seen you on socials.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome. So glad that you're here. We do lots of these events.
Thank you.
We'll talk later. We'll talk more later too, and see what's going on with you. Rendered Flesh, let's hear from you. Thanks for joining us, and let us know what your experience has been with curated versus non-curated, and maybe some things that can be improved, with some of these platforms.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I guess I had a similar start to Volt Edge. Found it trying to apply on some of the curated platforms at the beginning was difficult. So I also was on Rarible. That's where I started, and that's an open platform, so non-curated. And I found that was actually good experience. It kind of, there seemed to be a bit of a backlash when I just joined. There was a bit of drama going on in the scene against some of the curated platforms. So there was kind of this Rarible kind of crew kind of culture, and that was it's quite nice to be a part of this. Like, I don't know, I wasn't part of it, but
part of the clique, right?
Rebellious spirit of these open platforms. So I don't know. I started actually selling work there, and it went quite well. And then the gas prices kind of shot up shortly after I started minting, so it started getting difficult for artists who were just starting out, maybe not, who haven't made many sales, to invest that much money just to mint a piece. So then I found out about this platform called NFT Showroom, which is on the Hive blockchain, which is also proof of stake. Also, we can talk about it later with the environmental issue. So it's similar to Ken or other platforms that are proof of stake. But also, one advantage of these platforms is you don't have the gas fees. So it was a good place to go and try out that side of things as well. And
is that a non-curated platform?
Yeah. It is curated, but not as strictly as some of the others, I would say. I could be wrong about that. I think you do have to apply, but it's a very friendly artist-led community, and they had loads of really cool social events. So that kind of felt like my first family in NFTs when I first did it. So that was really good. And then later I managed to get on some curated platforms. Which,
speaking of community, yeah. Well, thank you, Rendered Flesh. Speaking of communities, have you all noticed like a community change? Maybe you've added new people to your network. And I know Lover Worldwide was talking about community being super important. Has it got you more active in VR with different people, or have you noticed maybe like, because I've seen it and read it online on Twitter, people kind of giving you bad remarks because you've you're minting your artwork or something like that?
Well, for me, I've got to just be really expressive of my thanks of community. To be honest, I really am appreciative. And especially in regards to whether you're on a curated platform or not, for example, one of the benefits of some of the platforms is the auctions. And I early on connected with an auction community. And that right there really creates a really nice support system, because it's a bunch of artists and it doesn't matter what platform you're on. Normally, some of the platforms, they're very, rigorous, and, you can only talk about that platform and this type of thing. And being in that community of just everyone is on anything and anywhere, and some are curated and some are not, it really builds a nice camaraderie. And I found that was a real saving space for me, because it was a place where we all encouraged each other, regardless of where we're from, what platform we're on, what kind of artwork we do, and it's the AGA community, the art gallery auction house. They were just awesome, and they still are. And just doing events in general, community triggered events, it just helps everything. I have had really good experiences with community, and I'm currently now in a collective that is all community based. So little by little, I feel like you start connecting with your tribe, and I think that really makes a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. It really does.
Your people.
Is that was that your experience as well?
I was going to say, when it's like when you've actually got a good group of friends, fellow artists. When you do start putting your artwork out there, when you mint something, they will give you a lot of support, which is really important, because you're always worried when you're actually putting your art out into the world. So it's a massive bonus to have people actually supporting your artwork, and that's what I always advise other artists to do, is to be supportive of your fellow artists and of the entire environment, because we need that sort of thing. And it makes it more fun. It makes it more fulfilling. Even if people never actually buy your work, then it's nice to have someone just saying, I really like that piece. So I really kind of connected to that, or it spoke to me. I've had a couple of people say that about my work. It spoke to me. That is just, it's very flattering. It's really lovely. And I never had stuff like that previously, before the whole NFT thing for me kicked off a whole period of just creating new digital work and putting it out there and talking to people about it, which I never really considered before. So it's been a massive bonus that way. And you do get that off of all the galleries, and you just get a lot of that through Twitter and Instagram as well. Also, I never really used before, but you get a lot of reactions and chats with people on through Instagram as well. So it's really cool. It's all very beneficial. I haven't really had any negative experiences. One or two people popped up saying, what about the ecological issue? And generally speaking, I would look at what they've actually commented before, and if they're just basically just having a go most of the time, I wouldn't really engage. It's one of those things I am aware of and I am concerned with, but I'm not a kind of technical person, so I'm not going to get into a huge conversation with people about it. But I understand people have concerns, and I've got plenty of concerns about global warming and all that as well. So I'm keeping a very close eye on developments and the way things are improving. And places like Hive and His et Nunc and that, it's really nice there are other platforms. And also that provides great competition for something like Ethereum, which I believe we're looking at, proof of stake and all that before anyway. But it gives them more need to do that, because they've got other chains that are competing now that have a better ecological footprint. So now everybody has to make sure they're actually considering that.
I think for artists, it's really hard to balance all the factors, right? You got to promote yourself. You got to watch out for this medium. You got to watch out for this. Or that. And we're just trying to, create and be creative and just tap into our feelings and emotions and not be attacked, right, on social media because of a choice we made. But isn't that human nature, isn't it? People get bored.
Is, yeah. And
it's not to talk. It's not to say that the issues that are coming up are not important. Like you said, Voltage, they are. But there's another way to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's something that
that's kind of not what we're out there for. We're not there to have big discussions about global warming and stuff like that. Important though it is, it's I'm not qualified to comment on that. Is the way I feel. I just don't know enough, and it's such it's another vast area you could devote
the question
the rest
is,
of your
do
life
they
to.
Also know enough? Because again, you have a lot of people who have legitimate concerns, are using, a platform to express their reaction to a sensational thing, and maybe they haven't done the research
Exactly.
themselves or whatnot.
And a lot of people respond to things they see on social media platforms, and they don't necessarily consider that there could be an agenda by the people who have actually posted some of this information. Some people post information and then disappear, and people will use it as like proof, but it might be quite tenuous proof. There's a lot of reality to this, but then sometimes, yeah.
Let's get into the next segment first with that. I want to make sure we cover has anybody made a living off of minting their artwork? Or
It supported me the last few months.
Good.
It's not
that
something
is awesome.
I think I'll make a career, because I do know people who have kind of decided to make minting artwork and selling artwork on the blockchain their career, and it's quite hard to kind of keep up the momentum of creating art and also making people want to buy the art as well. But it's really supported me in the last year. It's really, really helped, and it's been wonderful.
Anyone else? I mean, you don't have to tell us what your balance is.
It's been beneficial. Let's put it that way. It has helped. I mean, the headset I'm wearing now actually came from my first set of sales. So, and I did say, if I ever sell any NFTs, then I'll get myself my own VR headset, and I did. So, I'm definitely very happy about that. So, yeah.
Fortunately, I have to say, I had a client retainer that ended maybe October of last year, and just ever since I've been a full-time crypto artist, just not exactly by choice, right? But just that's where I was seeing the opportunities and possibilities. And I'm really, I say often, I'm really being saved in a way by crypto art and the community. Like I said, I'm a part of a collective called the Guild. And not only do we create projects that are collaborative with each other, that are just inspired by one of the members or a group of the members, but also now the Guild is also beginning to receive commissions. So I've been working on a few commissions that have been funneled through the Guild, and I am just super, super grateful, because now there's a little bit of a pipeline happening, and it really helps. It's really helpful. Very so I have to say I'm very, very grateful for that.
Linman, Rendered Flesh, do you have any success stories, financial, with I know maybe you might be new, but do you have anything to share on that point?
I did want to share, I wanted to add about the community thing, because you said earlier something about, has your following grown, or have you found more of a sense of community? And it made me kind of think that I'm pretty much here because of the community. I knew some specifically other VR artists, and it was Metageist actually who sort of introduced me to the idea of the blockchain and said, hey, come along with the incubator of crypto art and create a virtual gallery, which I know some of us have here, a lot of us have here. And then from then on, especially because throughout the pandemic as well, there really was this sense of community, and being creators, a lot of us were in this similar positions, losing a lot of jobs, a lot of work. So there was this new kind of everyone was just funneling their energy into this new thing, and it was kind of nice to be able to, especially we would meet up in VR. So there was all of this, it all kind of came together and slotted together, and I think all of us kind of come up at the same time with learning about this stuff and everything.
Wonderful, yeah. And I think that's with the VR community in general, VR, XR, we've all helped each other, shared information and knowledge, just either discussion or tutorial videos, whatnot, and that's how things become supported. You create a foundation of activity, and you make things better, right? Because I'm sure everyone up here wants to do things, say, in the eyes of those who are criticizing, NFTs and things like that on certain blockchains. It's not it's a purposeful intent that you want to contribute to that controversial discussion. we're, as artists, we're just trying to sell our art and express ourselves and get our art out there. So this is definitely a good educational panel talk to help us all, become aware of other resources if we weren't aware before, and just continue to encourage each other, because it is definitely very difficult on social media sometimes. I got pretty heartbroken to see, some of the comments out there, mostly on Twitter. I don't know if they were on other platforms, but, criticizing artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
As it goes for success stories, success stories, I feel like even just one sale, especially when it's like bought by another artist or someone that you might have heard of, someone that you know in the community, when you see that they've bought your artwork and then you just see the money come in, I think like it feels like a success for just one, even,
It does. It's wonderful, particularly when it's artists. When you really like their work, it's like, wow, they actually bought mine. That is incredible.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
Make a point of thanking people profusely as well.
Did you have anything to contribute to the financial stories success?
Well, I guess one thing when I first started with crypto, I kind of set myself a target of I really wanted to save up for a laptop so I would be able to do more VR art, actually, because I was just using a standalone Oculus because my laptop wasn't good enough to run all the other interesting programs like Adobe Medium or Quill or all these other amazing VR software that's out there. So I really kind of got into it with a goal of like, yes, I'm gonna, everything I sell, I'm gonna put in a pot and save up and get a laptop. And I was imagining it would probably take a year or something to get the laptop I wanted, and I managed it after 2 months. So I was really, really shocked and surprised at that. And thanks to my collectors who did buy my art. And so now I'm using all those programs that I wanted to use for so long, and really sort of learning all these new tools. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and that's definitely all down to crypto art and NFTs.
So it's another way, especially as we were mentioning in 2020, where not really many events and exhibits were actually happening in real life. So we had to reach out, and many businesses in all the industries started going virtual. So it's such a great opportunity to be able to sell your art, but not just be able to sell your art, because you can go on any, art station, whatever, and sell a digital, photo of your art. But having it on a blockchain increases that value as far as like just way more than you can otherwise. So I think it's a wonderful technology, and I myself do have concerns about other people's concerns about the environment. So I'm also learning, and I'm learning, is it legit or is it not legit? What are we doing? Is it agenda, or is this an actual, issue? I mean, people are, I think where was it? They were steamrolling over graphics cards, guys. So let's get into that. Let's roll into segment 3. So thank you everyone on stage. I think we're gonna go ahead and keep Jose with us, or actually Jose is gonna come back. Hasmus is gonna stay. Rendered Flesh is gonna stay, and then we're gonna welcome JC Fractal and Never Ender back on the stage. So thank you everyone so much for joining us and sharing your story and your experiences involving the blockchain technology. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hang out with us. Hang out in the lounge afterwards if you want to join us afterwards.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah. All right. JC's here. Never Ender's back. Are you with us, JC?
Yeah, I'm trying to sit down. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Am I sitting weird?
Nope, you're good. You did the sitting down trick, so that's good. There's an issue of certain virtual coins which belong to certain type of blockchains that may be causing like some carbon emissions, you know, because of the processing that needs to happen. So as we learned in segment 1 is the miners have to process transactions, and then they have to go through a hashing calculation, and all of that will basically burn up your computer. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how, why, what. I would love to start with JC because actually I think you have an actual experience with that. I didn't know if you want to share that or not, but yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and introduce yourself,
Okay, awesome.
and then we'll just dive right in.
Yeah, hi, my name is JC Fractal, and I'm a VR developer. I also do XR. I do a lot of augmented reality. I got involved with art back in 2016 in VRArt, and I created the first VR gallery for Moksha Arts Collective. I'm also the XR developer for Before It's Too Late. We were going to go into the blockchain, and what happened was that we did a lot of research because we wanted the Before It's Too Late to create their first piece in the blockchain. And so we did a lot of research, and we ended up having to wait a little bit because we didn't want to mint anything with proof of work coins, kind of like Ethereum and Bitcoin and basically Ethereum based blockchains. So what we're waiting for now is we're waiting for specifically Tezos, Tezos. Tezos is about to be standard in OpenSea. So OpenSea is going to pretty soon start accepting Tezos. And the good thing about Tezos is that Tezos is a proof of stake, and it doesn't have to do that complex calculation
right?
Yeah, the hashing doesn't have to calculate this huge number. It just basically has to generate a random number, which takes a lot less energy. It's super fast. So, for example, a transaction in Ethereum could cost $30 to $50 potentially. With Tezos, it'll cost like 34 cents.
Quick question about the randomly generated number. Tezos, is that like a closed blockchain network, or can anyone create a smart contract and tap into that? And then how does that traffic? What if someone gets the same random number as this other person? Like,
yeah, it's a little technical, but like it is, anybody can come in. They can just stake a little bit of money into it or whatever, and they can generate a or they can join pools of people. People pool their money, and they're part of a pool. It's a little bit less decentralized than proof of work. Proof of work, everyone has a node in the proof of work, so everyone has a copy of the blockchain. But the problem is that with proof of stake, the nodes are much bigger. So a lot of times they have to kind of store them somewhere specifically, which is a little bit more dangerous because there's not as many copies of the blockchain. But for example, Solana, which is a proof of stake coin, is going to start storing their nodes in a decentralized manner. That's Solana. So there's a lot of different solutions coming up, but I would say that the answer is not just proof of stake. Because ultimately, proof of work and Ethereum and all these proof of work coins, eventually they're going to be running out of renewable energy. And that transition is happening really fast. So in the future, in a couple of years, it's just going to be equally okay to do a proof of work coin as a proof of stake. They each have their pluses and minuses, but at least for now, me personally and the groups Yeah, right now, personally, and from the groups I'm working with, we're looking at Tezos for now because Tezos would be the most environmentally friendly. And in a couple of months, even OpenSea is going to support Tezos. So, that's a good alternative coming up.
Very awesome. And just to clarify, you guys, the reason it takes so much energy for doing, hashing is because the calculation is so intense. And especially the more we go more into time, and they have to, the more blocks you have on a chain, the more power you need to generate that next sequence of block. And it's not
Yeah.
just one person doing this. I found a map online and it shows all the countries that are involved and who's heaviest involved in the hashing computation for Bitcoin. And yeah, I think China took the gold for that one. But it just, you've got all these people basically competing. So, that's a huge factor. But then competition also is good because, you solve problems that way as well.
It makes it more secure,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about graphics cards. Does anyone know why graphics cards are needed for this hashing computation?
I think as their processors can handle the calculations the fastest, and they can do multiples at the same time, and you can kind of rack them up in kind of batteries of graphics cards and computers and processors, and it's easily scalable.
Yeah, graphics cards are designed in parallel. They process data parallel, as opposed to a CPU, which is one set of calculations at a time. So that parallel nature, which they use for obviously visualizing graphics, they leverage that for doing these computations in parallel.
Can I add something about the graphics card? This is me adding a little bit of spiciness into it. So,
Go ahead.
When a lot of the Twitter backlash was happening, I noticed it was mainly a lot of illustrators, a lot of like traditional artists, but then also, weirdly enough, a lot of folks from like the indie gaming community, some folks in the VR industry. The thing I found interesting was that like both blockchain and gaming and VR utilize the same technology, right? Graphics cards, we're both using Unreal, Unity, all these same softwares to create the artwork. Thing is, though, I did some research and I read through some studies done in Berkeley, people who actually measure energy usage and all these things, and there isn't any clear data that you can point to show the impact of, like, let's say the gaming industry and the graphics cards used there, or any game streaming that's come out in the past several years. There's no conclusive numbers you can point to, so I just found it really really weird that like folks in those camps were so quick to point fingers when they're not pointing at their own hobbies and industries that they're in.
I think there were some special hardware devices that were built called ASICs, which were designed specifically to use these graphic cards for mining, and that's one of the issues. It's not just the energy consumed, because when these hardware technology, when that gets developed, then the old hardware gets thrown away. So you've got all this e-waste as well, and there's massive tons of waste that are produced by it, because obviously all the miners, they're competing with each other for the fastest processing times, because whoever can process it faster, they get the reward. So that's another topic, not just the energy use, but also the hardware waste. And it's also a reason why these perhaps these graphic cards specifically being captured by the miners, because they're the fastest on the market and therefore they can compete better.
I remember just hearing about it. I don't know if it was Reddit or one of my buddies or something, like, I can't get this, graphics card, and they were saying that people were using bots to buy up the graphics cards right away. I mean, it's a race, you guys. It's like gold. You're mining for gold, and you need your tools, your shovel and whatnot, to go, dig for this gold, right? So everybody's like rushing to it, and it's causing some issues.
Yeah, I had a great trouble time trying to get a graphics card in the last few months. I had to watch a live stream of a live feed of when graphics cards came in stock and all these shops online. It was insane.
A lot of times the only way to get a graphics card like that is to buy it inside of a package. So you buy the entire computer, and I bought I got my 380 last year, at the end of last year, through getting an Alienware package. And I rechecked again this month for the prices, and the prices have gone up even more since last year.
Yeah. Yep. It's an issue. It's like, again, back during the gold rush, you go try and buy a pick or a shovel or a lantern. Imagine how much it, cost at that point, because everyone, it was in high demand.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about what communities and platforms are responding to this carbon emission issue, and what alternative options there are.
I can speak to that, and I have to drop some names too. I'm part of the Clean NFT group, created by Michelle Brown, the Bad Lament. Also, we've got Sutu in there as well. Joni, who's a great artist, and a lot of people, Pearl. And so it's just a group of a lot of passionate folks who are really wanting to explore the space, but then wanting to ask these like tougher questions. The great thing about the group is that we do allow folks that have maybe they're against crypto, right? But as long as they're willing to have that debate in a civil way, you're welcome to join, and that way we can dig deeper. My involvement with the group was basically spurred by the fact that in the beginning of the year, most platforms, most people who are influencers in the space were pushing this narrative that like the only place you could really mint were these Ethereum platforms. And even back then, there were some proof of stake options, but no one was talking about them. No one was really pushing for them as an alternative. And so that's why I started the spreadsheet, was essentially to show, look, there are other options. We just have to commit to moving to these, or trying to push the platforms to make a change. And we tried pushing the platforms. Some of them, like Known Origin, actually did make changes to their smart contract to make it a little bit more efficient. But most other platforms just gave us that kind of like, we're waiting for ETH 2.0 answer. And so, that was partially why a lot of folks moved to Hicketnook in the first place, was this kind of wave that we created to kind of find a new platform, essentially.
I don't know if anybody found anything online, but I would love to see how much energy it takes for the current fiat process. How much energy does that take? Debit card processes, credit card processes, banks, doing their agenda at the end of the night, balancing all the banks. Like, how much energy does that take? I don't know. I personally don't know, but I would love to see a comparison chart, like the actual, argument, just to see where to start. Do we need to sound the alarm like really loud, or do we need to just, work on this problem, or, make it better? Like how extreme of an issue is this? At the same time, my computer gets really hot just being in VR. I use a lot of energy just being in VR. So I know it takes a lot of energy. So
I think humans in general just make a lot of energy. you just use up a ton of energy.
We're charging our phones, and
and we are in the process
of
making it making it better.
Mm-hmm.
I did some mining of Dogecoin in the last month.
As an experiment, right?
And as an experiment, and I have to tell you that it definitely makes your electric bill go up substantially.
Yep. So,
I noticed it.
I would love to see, some actual hard numbers, because I think that's where we can all start making some actual like steps where everybody is aware.
I tried to do a little bit of research beforehand, but it's really difficult to find those like actual hard numbers. There's a lot of kind of like global energy consumption stuff, but it's really difficult to find like specific industries. I think because they're so complex, and there's so much like fractalized different industries, and how they all kind of, it's like a complex system of interaction and things. But I can't tell you where I know or how I know, but I do know that the the industry for like holding and like looking after the gold reserves in the USA or something like that is pretty energy intensive as well. And like one of the the biggest like carbon polluters of the world currently is the textiles industry. And
maintaining anything of value, right?
Yeah, and I just reckon a lot of the like bad press which came to the blockchain technology in the last few months with in considering the environment was not unfounded, but it's you got to consider that there's energy. It takes energy to do things, and a lot of other industries also have a lot of waste in it as well. But
it takes a lot of money to pay people, to be in the bank,
totally,
to turn on the lights.
I just like echo what Neverrender was talking. It's been really lovely being a part of this community, having mature civil conversations about how we can find renewable alternatives.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the one of the industries that produces the most carbon, the most greenhouse gases is the consumption of meats, the poultry, cows, and the whole sort of infrastructure involved with industrialized food production is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases in the world.
We don't realize that.
Exactly. That's basically one of the answers right
there. It's so good for your immune system. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Hasmus was saying, that the unfortunate thing is that all the headlines that came out. So I actually read about 230 articles from December to April.
Oh my gosh.
Touch this topic. It's a whole other spreadsheet. I haven't published it yet. But,
I want to see the spreadsheet.
Oh my god.
What I found was that only 1/6 of those articles actually mentioned proof of stake alternatives in a significant way, which to me was kind of sad. And I think what was the other statistic I found? Well, just most of it was like clickbaity headlines specific to Ethereum, but even then, a lot of these articles were not really well done, and they didn't touch on the nuance of the subject. It's not enough to just wait for things to go to proof of stake and say, oh, everything's better now. You can actually go deeper and then track which platforms are using renewables, right, for all their nodes. Proof of stake moving in that direction is like definitely the wave, and that's where the future's going.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, because we have to take care of our Earth and make sure that what we're doing as humans, as we get further and further into technology and advancements, like sending rockets to Mars. I mean, when's the next, vacation going to be, or when's the first vacation going to be booked on Mars? We don't know. And we have to think about that kind of stuff, like rocket fuel or energy used to, have all of our electronics and wonderful gadgets that we use. VR itself, it's a way.
I think
it's a way for us to connect with each other, but we also have to look at the implications that it has otherwise.
Yeah. I think it's worth maybe talking also about what people are doing on Ethereum. Like Neverrender mentioned Known Origin. I think they've done some really cool stuff. They've introduced on profiles so you can donate to charity. So when you are, say, if you're an artist, you've sold a piece of work and you can decide for yourself, okay, I'm going to maybe offset some of that and donate it. I think there's three, I can't remember all three. One of them's 350.org, which is kind of trying to encourage people or governments to give up fossil fuels. So that's one charity you can donate to. The other one is a fund for green NFTs that was set up by ArtGnome. He's kind of a big figure in the crypto art community. So yeah, that's a fund for, I don't know, people. It's like a hackathon, right? For people to hacker ideas for how to solve these issues. And I think, Ethereum is working to switch to proof of stake, but these things take time, and it's good to know that people do have good intentions and that they are putting an effort into actually change things and not just point fingers and it doesn't really get you anywhere. It's good to know that there are solutions and possibilities to try and offset what you're doing, or find other ways to help.
Thank you everybody so much. We are like about 2 hours in, so apologize if it went a little long for anyone, but we covered so many things in this talk, and I am so grateful for our VRALive team. Zandy, Wildcard, Fictional Cat, Girl Rider, and thank you everyone for being on the show and sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge, and helping to bring light to what's going on with the blockchain technology and how it can can be used. And thank you everyone.
On.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Sabby.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Sabby.
You're welcome. We're gonna open up the lounge portal, so if anybody wants to join us there, just kind of hang out, decompress, you are more than welcome. The portal is right back there, and I'm gonna meet you guys there. Bye.
Bye-bye.